Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for everybody for joining us for what is our first live Talking Talent. So what could go wrong? I'm absolutely delighted, though, to be joined by an expert who has used this platform before, so I'm sure he'll be able to keep me right if anything goes wrong.
A bit far.
Yeah, so we're in a live setting in the middle of Green Bean in our headquarters here. So there could be some excited recruiters in the background shouting, yelling when they've managed to fill 20 jobs, or they're going out for their lunch with through the fire exit doors. So just excuse any noises. But today's guest, he requires very little introduction. He's featured on many podcasts and speaker events. I've followed and been in touch with Garry for a number of years, but finally got to meet him at the Contact Centre Expo last year in November. Garry's well known for telling operational leaders how to spin all the plates that they have to manage. He also runs thought leadership events through the Contact Centre network, and that's a regular monthly event that brings the Contact Centre community together to tackle some of the key issues and topics. And we're absolutely delighted that he's decided to join us today and be our first live guest. So welcome, Garry.
First live guest. Anything can happen in the next 60 minutes.
Absolutely. And normally will be user error on my part, I can tell you. So thanks so much for agreeing to join us today. Just really interested to know a little bit more about you, your career. You're used to talking to many thought leaders in the industry, so I thought it would be a really good opportunity to put you in the spotlight and find out a little bit more about you, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get a bit bashful when people do an introduction like that, Julia. I'm quite a shy, retiring type, so I don't need bigging up. My head's big enough as it is. But thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction.
So how long have you worked in the customer service and contact centre industry? And how did you get into it?
It feels like, it pretty much has been a lifetime. I was going to say it feels like a lifetime, but it kind of has been a lifetime because I've spent the vast majority of my adult career working in contact centres, and it was an absolute fluke. As most people will probably attest to. They don't necessarily join contact centres thinking I'm going to have a career in contact centres, which is something that I'm very keen to bust a myth on. But I landed in the contact centre world because of a bad career choice in moving to QuickSave, RIP.
My first name from the past, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like literally no frills. But I spent my formative years working in the Golden Arches at McDonald's and learned some really great business skills, which you'd be surprised to learn that McDonald's does equip you for business, which is great. And after a period of time, I decided to take a step into leadership and management, and I joined like a designate program for QuickSave. Soon realized that QuickSave, probably given that it's not around anymore, wasn't probably the company that I wanted to be with. So decided
it wasn't innovating enough for you.
Yeah, so I decided after about 6 months that I needed a different job, and I landed in a contact center in Salford Keys, which was Bupa Healthcare, and it was, if I compare it to the salaries that we recruit for now, it's a lot less than what we recruit for now. And it was like, right, how do I do that? So I was working in the contact center 9 to 5, and then I picked up my part-time job then at McDonald's doing shift work as a shift runner during the evening. So I was literally working from 9 till about 12 at night at that point in my career. But that started in the early 2000s, and that's been my career ever since. Contact centers has allowed me to do a whole host of things, and it's enabled me to be in a position where I've now got 2 businesses that all center around the contacts industry. So it was an entire fluke, but probably the best fluke that I ever did.
Well, we're going to come on to later on to talk about, people entering the industry. So that is amazing to hear your journey there. And I guess that the training you had with a company like McDonald's has really set you in good stead for customer service as well.
Oh, 100%.
It's phenomenal, isn't it?
100%. It trains you for business. It trains you for leadership. It trains you for customer service. It trains you for business management. So it's I'd absolutely recommend anybody who has children utilize the University of McDonald's as part of their work experience, because they'll come out richer for it.
Exactly. So you've managed large teams of both inbound and outbound sales, account management teams across multiple sites. So what valuable lessons have you learned while you've been working in the sector?
You know what? These lots of lessons. I mean, some you learn the hard way, and some you learn in other ways. But I think the key bit, and when I first started off as a leader in contact centers, and when you start off as a more senior leader, you think you are responsible for everything, and everything's your responsibility, and you're accountable for everything. So you end up taking on a lot of pressure that you probably don't need. And the thing that I probably learned, maybe the hard way actually, is start to build the right team around you and leverage the skills and experience of that team. So you don't have to do everything. Delegation is 100% an art that you have to craft in leadership, and being comfortable letting go. I think my natural tendency is to be a little bit of a control freak, as anybody that knows me will attest to. I am a little bit OCD and a little bit controlling, but you have to let go of some of that, and you have to empower the team around you in order to deliver the end result. And you have to allow people to be accountable for other things. So making sure that you've got a real clear structure, make sure you've got a real clear understanding of your team's capability around you, and then being comfortable delegating, because you can't do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess it's creating that culture as well, where it's okay to fail as long as you're learning from your mistakes and you're learning from failure. I mean, that must have been quite a hard thing to hand over, ownership of particular tasks to people in case they fail. So how do you deal with that?
You know what? Especially if you're someone like me who likes things done in a particular way. But I think you have to distance yourself from how you want it done and allow people to think about how they would do it, and then talk to you about it and communicate, saying this is the approach that I'm thinking about taking. Do you agree? Would you have any advice or any suggestions? And work on it that way, rather than being so prescriptive. And which is probably what I started off doing in my early career, is saying, right, this is what we're doing, this is how I want you to do it. I might as well have just done it myself, because when it comes back, you end up redoing it. But that's because you're not communicating in the right way. So I think for me, abdicating some of the responsibilities that you've got, but overseeing the delivery of those is the key part, and a lesson that I'd encourage any new leader in businesses to say, right, how do you get comfortable taking a step back and allowing your team to be empowered and to do what they think is the right thing with your guidance rather than your instruction, is probably the key learn for me.
Okay. So you decided to go into business just before the pandemic, great timing, after 15 years with Bupa. What made you take the leap into consultancy, and how's it been for you?
You know what? It's been one hell of a roller coaster. Anybody who says that setting up your own business is easy is lying. I set up, when did I set up? It's coming up to my birthday, actually, my FAB birthday. I'm like the queen or the king now, multiple birthdays.
I hope you don't expect presents at each one, though.
Well, absolutely. At least a happy birthday. So, I mean, for me, I spent a long time in contact centers, and started probably before I set up FAB thinking about what do I want to do with my career. And I always had this thing in the back of my mind, where I don't want to be an insurance salesman or insurance salesperson for my entire career. And Bupa is a fantastic company to work for, as you probably know. And there's lots of opportunities to do. But I've been doing the same thing for a long time, and I've got itchy feet around what I want to do, how I want to do it. And I'd had new leaders that had come into the team, and I went for an interview once to pursue a former leader of mine, And the interview that I got back from the interviews, I wasn't successful, unfortunately. But the feedback that they gave, we said, right, if we cut you in the middle, we think you'd probably say Booper. And that terrified the living daylights out of me. It made me think about, what do I want to do and how do I put myself out into other worlds? Because whilst I'd done lots of different roles within Booper and been fortunate enough to kind of manage different teams, manage different functions, it was still, my CV was like Booper through and through. It was like 3 companies: QuickSave, McDonald's, and Booper, which you start to think as you get older as well, you start to think, right, actually, do I need to branch out? Do I need to do something different? And I probably didn't really do anything with that at the time, other than maybe bury my head in the sand and just throw myself into work. And then I started looking at sales capability partners and started looking at kind of all the things that they have to offer. And that started kind of sending my mind into a whirl, because you read some of these things and you think, I could do that, I could do it better. And then you see in the price tag that people are putting on it, and you're like, bloody hell, there's an industry out here that needs some help. And I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and it's, do I go and work for somebody else? Do I try and look for different roles internally that might challenge? And ultimately, it came to a point where actually I've got enough in the bank to be able to make a decision now about what I want to do with my career. And as a result of that, I thought, right, let's go work for myself. And FAB Solutions was born as a result of it. And the original intention for FAB as a business was to be like a sales capability partner. But I realized there is so much more that I have in my locker that could help people in the general contact center operational sphere, that it quickly grew arms and legs into more customer experience consultancy, process improvement, training and leadership. And then 4 years later, here we are setting up a second business that helps contact centers who want to outsource, and used all the experience from the time in contact centers and the time in consultancy and all the people that I've then helped with off the back of that to build an outsourced consultancy that's probably a little bit different in my view to other outsourcers, in that it's more of a lived experience through operations, and creating that whole partnership aspect, so you become more of a natural extension of the client that you're partnering with, not just an outsourcer where you throw a load of data over the fence and then get somebody to ring it. So that's kind of the journey that the last 4 years has been. It's 4 years, which blink and you'll miss it.
And how's it been? How's business been? Obviously, you're branching out and you're setting up an extra arm to it. Presumably, business is going well, plenty of demand.
Well, you know what? I thought Brexit was the only hurdle when I first started, and then thought the world was out to get me with a global pandemic. But actually, during that time, business actually boomed, I think, because everybody went online and they were looking for ways to improve processes, looking how to manage remote teams, looking how to set up their infrastructures and working through processes. It seemed to go a little bit crazy, and we had the best year during the COVID years, and this last year has been equally as successful, so much so that it's enabled me to invest in setting up the outsource business. And we've got first clients on board with that, and we're now operating multiple campaigns, both in the UK and abroad. So fingers crossed, it's working. It's stressful beyond belief, and you're always thinking cash flow. And they do say cash is king. It absolutely is, especially when you've got salary bills to pay. Yeah. But it's nice stress to have.
Because you're doing what you love, and you know what you're doing for yourself
100%,
as well.
100%.
Fantastic. But I guess the thing that you're not able to bring to your own business is the valuable skill that the advice you were given for other leaders was the art of delegation. So how is that working for you now?
I'm not going to lie. I do have to remind myself to empower others. And I think having a team as well now helps with that. I mean, as the consultancy business, it was pretty much me with associate consultants that we'd bring in. And whilst consultants and associates that you work with are part of your team for a time, they're not employed by you, so they don't have the same attachment to what you're trying to build, because some of them have got their own businesses and some of them work self-employed. So now building a team and building a structure that gives me people to bounce ideas off and to delegate is a really great thing, because it allows me to watch other people now grow and have those careers that I was fortunate enough to get in the contact center. The thing that I want to do now is to grow it to a point where I can create new roles, new opportunities, and allow people that internal mobility that helps develop their career and helps fuel their aspirations.
Yeah, excellent. So what would you say has been most valuable, your experience or your education?
You know what? I always used to kick myself for not going to university.
I did
So
too.
I was eligible to go to university, and it was on the plan. But at the time, when I was like 17, I'd moved out of the parental abode and I was living in Eccles in Manchester. And all of a sudden I had to pay rent, I had to pay council tax. And I was like, oh no, I've got bills. So that's when I first started working at McDonald's, and then you get used to a bit of cash in your pocket and in your wallet. And you start to build those work-life skills. And I lived a very vicarious university life through my friends that did go to university. So I don't feel like I missed out on the social experience. I just didn't come out of it after 3 years with a degree. And Lord knows what that degree would have been. But I was very big into psychology at the time. And I think that's helped me think about the psychology of people, organizational psychology, leadership and management. And it's helped me think about how I want to approach things. So I think I've used life skills and life experience to aid work experience, but 100% work experience has shaped my career and where I've got to over education. I think no problem with education, and I would encourage people to spend that time and nurture their skills. But I think I've taken education from more of an internal educational perspective, where you've gone on courses, you've done work-related courses and projects that help fuel that experience in the industry and in the field that you're in. So I think I've educated myself, but educated myself through business rather than the conventional.
Excellent. Same here. I think there's a lot to be said for common sense as well, in that you learn that through experience, don't you? And in customer service and sales, that's so important. That's something you can't be taught.
Oh, my dad used to say I was an intelligent idiot. He said I had no common sense at all. And he still does, to be fair. But I've applied the common sense to the industry that I'm in to make informed and more intelligent decisions based on experience and insight. So it does help.
Great. So in 2020, Garry, you set up the contact center network. Obviously, quite a busy person running your own business. What inspired you and what led you to do that, and how's that grown?
You know what? It was that was the very cusp of COVID. So we ran the first one. I think it was March 2020. It might be March, April 2020. And all of a sudden you go from having lots of business planned in to actually having not a lot planned in, because everybody suddenly locked down and they were reevaluating budgets and they were thinking, right, for a period, what are we doing? How do we do it? And what do we do with our lives while we're moving everybody from an on-premise solution to a cloud-based solution? And how do we keep people educated, informed, and connected was the key bit. And that was a whole conversation around how do we build that connection whilst we're all in this really difficult position. And I was chatting to a good friend of mine about how we start to kind of think about building that kind of platform that allows us to kind of connect together. And we ended up bringing together some really great people in terms of setting up the contact center network as first guest. So like Martin Teasdale was like chomping at the bit. And it's just when I got to know Martin. So we brought together a whole panel of guests for this first session, just to kind of bring people together. And it was around how do we kind of build that community. And did I intend it to go for as long as it's gone? Because it's gone for like 2 years. Absolutely not. I thought it might be a bit of a stopgap for people. But people still keep turning off. And the panelists that we get are really awesome, really great quality, and they're from the operation as well. So I think people resonate with them. And find the topics and the agendas that we roll out really pertinent to the experiences that they're going through at the moment. So it was about building that community. It was about idle hands and filling my time at the same time. But yeah, I've always said, as long as people keep turning up, I'm happy to carve the time out to keep running, because I think they're a really valuable asset.
Absolutely. I think the more we can share knowledge, insight, and news, it helps to raise the standards of the industry and helps to professionalize it as well, doesn't it? So definitely. How often do you run those? You run those monthly for anyone that isn't aware of it?
So they are usually the last Thursday of every month, 1 till 2 p.m. And we run them once a month.
Do these live or are these recorded?
They are live. They're not on LinkedIn Live, but they are live. So we do a lot of preparation for them. So I'm really grateful for the panelists that join, because they do give up some of their time to prepare and obviously join the event. So they're really useful. And like I say, they're all saved and they're all recorded. They're all on my FAB TV page. So if you go on YouTube, they're all under there, and they get lots of hits after. So people use them as a bit of a resource after the fact as well, which is always nice to have.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So how do you keep your industry knowledge up to date, Garry? Do you do any professional development yourself? Do you learn it all through your network? And tell me how you keep yourself at the top of your game.
You know what? Wherever there is a link to download insights, download this report, I am 100% downloading and reading.
You're
so constantly. Yeah, absolutely. There is so much. I mean, I am click. But there is so much out there in the industry to read and to absorb that kind of keeps you at the forefront of technology, of people development, all sorts of new ways of working and practices. I mean, the launch of the whole chat GPT, that's a really interesting dynamic to come now for people who don't necessarily have AI in the call centers and might want to start to integrate that. So it's really interesting to see different tools, I suppose, evolving. And I'm constantly a sponge in terms of going on other people's podcasts and hearing what they've got to say, downloading the industry insights, like the Institute of Customer Service reports are really useful. All the stuff on Call Center Helper and the stuff that all those people share, all the stuff that you guys produce as content, I think is really valuable. And then turning that and interpreting that into my own understanding that helps my thinking about how we relate it to either clients or other industry topics, helps me stay, I suppose, at the forefront of what's happening. But yeah, using other people and sharing their experiences as well. I mean, we're a great industry for sharing information. So if you want to go out and find it, there are people out there that will talk about it. And there are some awesome people in the CX space, in the technology space, in the people development space that do a whole host of different topics, webinars, white papers. So if you want something in it, Google's your friend. You can find it.
Well, I know, like you say, the contact center industry is one of the most open industries where to share best practice and where everybody is open to learning, sharing the challenges, talking about the mistakes. And it's a brilliant industry to be in. So you inspire a lot of people yourself, Garry, through, I mean, you certainly inspire me when I heard you speak at the Call and Contact Center Expo. Who inspires you? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Oh, you know what, it's a really good question. And people say, I mean, when you ask people that, they say, like someone like Stephen Bartlett is an inspiring figure, or Jeff Bezos or Richard Branson or something like that. I take my inspiration from the people that I've worked with who've directly influenced my thinking and shaped me as a leader in the contact center. So inspirational people for me are probably people that are in my immediate peer network that have had an inspiring impact on my development. So yes, I look up to other entrepreneurial figures and other business leaders and think you're doing some great stuff there. But actually, the people that have had the biggest impact on me are the people that have managed me and helped develop me and my career and shaped my thinking. So there's a couple of bosses that have had a definite impact on how I work, on how my leadership style has changed over the years.
And that wasn't the boss at QuickSave.
You take what you can from the people that are around you. Always take the positives and build them into what you are. But QuickSave was an interesting time for sure. Again, a lot of learnings from that that you build on. But I think for me, the inspiring people are the people that I see in the industry. So people like Martin Teasdale, for example, is a great one. The work that he does in putting all that kind of stuff out on Get Out of Rap and really kind of going out and pushing boundaries with how we connect people. That's inspiring for me. So I look at inspiration from the industry rather than maybe it'd be great to be someone like Stephen Bartlett. I'd love to have his money and privilege and everything that goes with that. But
and apparently
the interesting thing with him is he's come from the contact center. Yeah. So he probably is one to aspire to. But I think inspiration for me starts within the industry that I'm in and looking at people that I think are doing amazing things in the industry and using them as inspiration.
So you've seen an awful lot over the last 15 years working in the industry, or 15 years for Bupa before you set up yourself. What sort of changes and transformation have you seen the industry go through in that time? You must have seen quite a few stories.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about where the contact center industry was late 90s, early 2000s, a lot of it was on-premise solutions, so there wasn't as much flexibility to work from home, or if you were working from home, you were probably going through some really clunky Citrix VPN that crashed and timed you out every hour. So I think the biggest evolution for the contact center industry has to be the cloud. I mean, enabling the contact center to be anywhere in the world, as long as you have a VPN or a Wi-Fi connection, has to be the single biggest move for the contact center, because it's enabled us to do so much and be so flexible and agile as an industry. But I think where the contact center is moving forward now is how we embrace technology to enhance customer experience. So really great things like artificial intelligence and how we use that to improve the efficiency of tasks and activities and gain insight and start to interact with customers in a more agile way without the need to have a human resource present all the time. And I don't think that will ever replace human interaction entirely. I think it will make life easier and more efficient for both the contact center in terms of managing costs. And eventually, once we get all the niggles and everything ironed out, it'll be easier for customers and it'll be a much more seamless interaction. But I think the biggest areas for me are starting to use things like speech analytics more cohesively to build real clear strategies on how we can help iron out kinks in the customer journey and really understanding customer insights and customer feedback to improve the process for customers and for agents. And I think anything that we can do to make the agent's life easier is an absolute win. So I think that's where we'll start to see probably even more technology enhancements, is how we start to enable the agent desktop facilities, how we start to give access to better knowledge management capabilities, and how we have that both external and internal facing. I see some really great advancements in knowledge management, and I think COVID has probably helped fuel that because of the need to bring people together and to create more of that osmotic flow of learning on a digital sense. But I think certainly from when I joined back in the early 2000s, picking up a headset and doing what you do. I mean, when I was given a stack of yellow paper with loads of addresses on saying, right, go ring them. Now it's automated dialers, it's using intelligent campaign profiling and skills-based routing and all that kind of stuff. So we've come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I remember from my first job it was in a sales contact center. It was healthcare again, and I mean, I'm going back to the days where it started off with the yellow pages. So that shows how long ago and how far we've come now. But the industry has moved on. The transformation, the innovation in the industry is not seen in many other industries, or the collaboration or the career opportunities. But yet we still seem to struggle to attract talent into the industry. So what can we do to change perceptions of the contact center industry? We know, anybody working in the industry, that what a fantastic industry it can be to build a career, and the opportunities to, progress either upwards, sideways, which way you want to go and take a career. But how do we get that message and change that message externally?
It's a tough one, and the vision for FAB as a business is to change customer perceptions about contact centers by delivering awesome customer experiences. And I think that's the first point, is our interactions as customers need to be better, for us to want to either join it as an individual or decide that maybe it's something that our children might be a good place for our children to start. So I think the interactions that we have as customers informs our desire to want to work in the contact center space. But I think the contact center doesn't do enough positive PR about the opportunities that exist within the contact center. And when I was at the Call and Contact Center Expo, I did a poll prior to it on LinkedIn. And then I asked the same question in the audience, and I was like, how many people in the audience started life out as a contact center agent and are now in a much more senior role? And literally probably 90% of hands were up. So the call center should not be seen as an entry level role that you use as a stopgap to your future career or your future prospects, because actually, one, it's not an entry-level role. The job that a contact center agent does is hugely challenging and really misunderstood in terms of the skills that they develop, in terms of communication, in terms of processes, in terms of the ability to multitask, to really kind of understand what customers are saying and use those interpersonal skills to show empathy and active listening. So there's the role of the contact center agent is not an entry-level role, and people coming into that are seriously misguided if they think it's going to be an easy life. So I think we have to, one, look at salary and remuneration for the front line and make that more attractive. But then I think we have to push out the fact that there are multiple opportunities in contact centers, whether it's team leadership or whether it's coaching, mentoring, training. If you're in different industries, you might do underwriting, actuary, marketing, finance, and so much so you can become a director and a chief exec in the contact center. And I've seen it. I've seen people who've moved through the contact center and moved into director level roles. And it doesn't necessarily have to be after 10, 15 years. It can be if you have the right kind of attitude and the right mindset and the right amount of personal development and professional development to do that, you can move through the contact center quite fluidly and quite quickly. So I think it's around making it more attractive externally through providing those better experiences. Because you talk contact center, everybody thinks hour wait on the phone. They think they need to
didn't help us for that, did it?
Definitely didn't help. And the fact that we've still got long IVR waiting messages that might actually blame demand on COVID, etc., is still ridiculous. But I think we have to create that external environment that's contact centers are seen in a better light, reward fairly and appropriately for the task that people are doing, and then be more overt in how we put that PR out, that the contact center industry is an industry to have a career.
Yeah.
A bit like the army. We need you.
Absolutely. And from a recruitment perspective, we know, the hoops that candidates have to jump through to actually get a role in the contact center. It's not what it used to be, 20 years ago, where it would be any bum on seat. It's all around the customer experience and people that will live and breathe those values. So absolutely, I think we need to.
That's the thing. I think customer experience, well, I mean, I was going to say it's a bit of a buzzword, and I'll probably get shot for saying that, or people from the customer experience purist industry were like, how dare you say that? But I think sometimes we use the word customer experience and we think it's about marketing, it's about personas, it's about about the fluffy stuff. But actually, customer experience for me is fundamental in that you have to have a really robust operational platform and a really happy, motivated, and engaged workforce in order to deliver a great customer experience. So it's not so much about the marketing side of customer experience, and that definitely has an impact in how you project your brand and how you make sure the targeting and the customer personas and the customer journeys are right. But I think it's then looking at the operational delivery, because that for me is what really defines a good or a bad customer experience. If you're waiting on the phone for an hour trying to get through, if you then connect to an agent who's disengaged and doesn't really have the training, doesn't have the experience, has to put you on hold for numerous amounts of time, regardless of what your brand image is and what you're pushing out there from a marketing aspect and what you say that customer experience is, the customer is going to go away from that call thinking this is a Mickey Mouse outfit who doesn't know what they're doing, and they're going to tell everybody about it, and then nobody's going to then join, and you're going to risk retention of existing customers because that service delivery isn't there. So I always talk about great customer experience, and the recipe for great customer experience is operational excellence plus employee experience. And I talk about it being great customer outcomes rather than great customer experience, because I think it's the outcome for the customer that's the important thing.
Yeah.
The experience should be a byproduct, in my view. And again, I might get shot for that. And people can feel free to disagree. It'd be a really dull world if people agreed with everybody.
Exactly.
But that's my own personal opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. So what advice would you give to anybody considering a career in the contact center industry? Where would you say to start?
Don't do it. No, I kid. Absolutely. Embrace it with both hands. And I think the place to start with any job prospect, I suppose, is finding the right contact center for you. Because sadly, there are still ones out there that aren't the best and don't get run in the right way. And I think the BPO industry is a big one for that. And I think we've got a lot of damage limitation to do from how outsourcing has been seen in the past maybe 20 years or so. And I think there is a misconception that things like outsourcers are really bad and you wouldn't do that and you wouldn't do it for your customer experience. But I think outsourcing has actually come on leaps and bounds in terms of its technology and the brand and the processes that we put out there, because ultimately as an outsourcer you have to work twice as hard as the internal team because you want to be retained as the outsourcer. So I think in deciding if the contact center industry is right for you, it's maybe doing a bit of mystery shopping on that contact center. It's looking at kind of the reviews and the Glassdoor things that are out there that kind of give you an indication of the culture, and then taking it with a pinch of salt, because quite often on Glassdoor it's the people that are disenfranchised that quite often do the review rather than you see all the great positive stuff. But I think it's having an idea of what company you want to join, what values that company emits, and then getting under the skin of those in the interview. So don't be afraid to challenge the interviewer about their culture, about their values, because you don't join a company for 6 months, 12 months, maybe even 2 years. Sometimes we're joining it because we want a career. So I think we have to interview. We have to be prepared as an industry to be interviewed just as much as we're interviewing for the right candidate. But yeah, I think anybody who has children or anybody who's looking for new roles, who want a career, they couldn't go far wrong with starting life out in a contact center environment. And you don't have to start out on the first run, because there are so many different opportunities out there. We just need to be more overt in the different roles that are available and what type of skill we're looking for from the candidates that are applying. Yeah,
absolutely great advice there. So what's next for the contact center industry, in your opinion, Gary? Obviously, we know what's next for FAB. It's busy setting up an outsource center at the moment, but what's next for the industry, do you think?
You know, the industry's evolved so much. I'd say over the last 2 or 3 years, there's been so much coming through. I think the next big thing will be around technology and how we really truly embrace that omni-channel way of working. Because I think we talk about being omnichannel, but really most contact centers are blended, and they either do one or the other. And they might flip between channels rather than being truly omnichannel. But I think if we're going to do that, we need to then really think about what the operating model for the contact center needs to be and how we equip people with the right skills to be able to do that and understand what we can and can't do when it comes to expanding those communications channels. But I think the other element is then what will be really interesting to see is how we start to evolve AI and speech technology and use that in the contact center to fuel more automation and more autonomous ways of working that help streamline efficiency in the contact center and help the contact center agents do their job better. And I think we talk about automation and we talk about autonomous working as ways to save costs. Ultimately, they do save costs, but I think what we've seen over the past few years is customer contact and what customers are ringing up for has vastly changed because of the ways that they interact with us digitally. So if we can do more to give agents more time to spend with customers, that ultimately improves that first call resolution rate, improves the level of customer satisfaction, improves the customer experience, and we get stickier customers as a result of that. So working on how we really embrace those new technologies to make them work and work seamlessly, I think is where the contact center future lies. You never know, we might even have agents as holograms. Watch out.
Wow, what a scary thought. Bit of an avatar going on there. Absolutely. So what's next for you personally? Are you in the process of setting up all your new campaigns and what have you? What's next for you? Are you going to continue looking for different business streams or just getting better at what you're doing now? How are you going to carry on innovating and growing?
So I think for me, the mission for FAB, I've talked to you about the vision. The mission for FAB is to be a one-stop shop for contact center solutions. So from the consultancy perspective and the process improvement, customer experience, leadership development, training arm, we cover a lot. In setting up the outsource business, that's helping us to almost showcase what we can do, how we do it, and what technologies we can bring to life to help support that and help internal teams evolve their processes by partnering with an outsourcer. The next phase for me is about how we take technology to the next level and how we support contact centers in finding the right supplier, setting up the technology in a way that's going to work for the contact center so they're not buying things that they don't really need or buying things that they're not really making the most of, and helping them install those platforms in a way that helps elevate that customer experience. So there's a whole technology arm that I'm working on, but I think I need to walk before I can run. So embedding the two core businesses and growing them and scaling them is the order of the day, and then push boundaries and become that one-stop shop for contact center solutions. But I'll sleep when I die. There you go. That's the
time, that isn't it? Love it. Just before we close off, just wanted to see if anybody's got any questions that they want us to raise to Garry, or in fact me. I'm just looking at the comments that are in there. Good luck, War Julie from Chris Rainsforth from the forum. Thanks, Chris. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. We haven't had any bugs in the live streaming yet. And Martin, bless you. Two awesome contact center legends right here. Love it. Oh, coming from the man himself. That's amazing.
Thank you very much.
So I don't know if anybody's got any questions, but while we're waiting to see if any come in, how can anyone reach you if they want to know more or get involved in the contact center network or want to know more about what FAB Group do?
Yeah, so I'm a LinkedIn pest. You can usually
find... you download everything.
Yeah, we do download everything. But yeah, people can find me through either my LinkedIn profile. It's probably the easiest way to get me because I probably spend far too much time on it. But visit the website, www.fabsolutions.co.uk, and reach out there. We've got live chat on that as well. So if you want to communicate, you communicate with the team. And or just drop them an email, my Garry.Gormley@fabsolutions.co.uk if you want to kind of reach out. And I'm always open to speaking to new people and having conversations and being a soundboard, because I think that's a really great way of networking across the industry and supporting people across the industry. If you've got career aspirations or if you want to know more, always happy to have a conversation.
Fantastic. Well, we've had a couple of questions come in. One from Mark Nichols. So who is your reference example of a brand that delivers excellent customer service? What a fantastic question that is.
So many that don't at the moment. But no. I think, I mean, people will probably violently disagree with me based on their own personal experiences. But the experiences that I've had through Amazon have been awesome. Their communication, their updates, they've even more recently given you like little time slots that you never had before. So you can prepare in advance. And I think whenever there is a problem with the order, they don't argue, they don't challenge, they kind of send it back and refund or whichever. So I've never had a problem with Amazon. And given the size of them, it's very easy sometimes for the larger organizations to be fraught with customer experience issues along either the digital channel or the customer service channel when you're trying to get somebody on voice, or the live chat channel. But it's always quick, it's always speedy, and it's seamless. And how they integrate app technology with that is really, really clever at the same time. So I think Amazon I would put up there on a pedestal, which I think probably a lot of people would agree with. But at the same time, if you've had a bad experience, you might say something different. So it's all relative.
It absolutely. I've had a great experience recently with Next, and their seamless experience was really good on deliveries going missing over the Christmas period with a certain delivery carrier. So it really does make a difference in building that brand advocacy, doesn't it? And make you more sticky to pay for that Prime.
And I think it's people who think about the customer and put themselves in the customer's shoes tend to have a much more clearer way of working and clearer mandate as to how the people in that organization go about effecting change. So Amazon definitely strikes me as somebody that really operates that almost like that Kaizen way of working, is to say, right, how do we make the 1% improvements and see that iteration in process? So definitely that's one I would recommend.
And our Martin is asking, he's keen to understand your views on the evolution of outbound and where is it going?
You know what I love? My roots lie in outbound. So I'm always I always preach probably a bit too much about outbound. And I think given the last 2 or 3 years, we've probably not really, because we've been swamped with inbound demand, we've not really done that proactive outreach. And I think when you look at customer advocacy and you look at customer retention and you look at that added value piece, I think proactive outbound is 100% an avenue we should be exploring as an industry and exploring more. I think we need to layer it in with other touch points and other communication methods, but people say outbound is dying, and I wholeheartedly disagree. I think we've got a whole host of dormant customers that we're not contacting, that have probably stopped spending money with us, that we class as a customer but probably aren't, and we need to start moving towards a more proactive approach with those customers and really thinking about the segmentation that we apply to different types of customer, and the value that each of those different customers have, and then the contact strategy that we apply to those customers. So I'm a big believer, any outbound campaign that we do, we go through an onboarding process to say, right, who is your ideal customer? What's the demographic of your existing customer? Because if we're going to be doing acquisition, these are the types of customers that we want to go to, and we want to create that data set and that contact strategy for how we approach. But then for your existing customers, and that proactive piece is to say, right, let's start to segment the value of your customer, the repeat spend that you want to get from that customer, the lifetime value of the customer, and start to think about those things so you can build a very tailored contact strategy that is a proactive outbound strategy. So I don't think it's dying. I definitely think it needs more focus and more thought given to it, and use technology as an enabler for that. But you can get all sorts of insight back from it. And when you think about the customer experience and things like closed loop calling, we do NPS, we get customer satisfaction, but do we really proactively use that data to then do closed loop calling and some sort of resolution that puts the customer back in the right space and becomes that brand ambassador. So yeah, long answer for, I think it's here to stay.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your views. And thank you so much for joining us today, Garry. Hopefully it hasn't been too painful taking me through my first LinkedIn Live. And that
You've done awesome.
I've had a full bottle of rescue tincture before I came on, I tell you. But it's been absolutely lovely to connect with you again. Martin's just saying, lovely answer, mate, and I agree. So there you go.
Yeah, great minds think alike.
Legend. Yeah. So it's been absolutely amazing to have you on board today. Thank you so much. Good luck with your new venture. We'll continue to obviously connect and share. I think you're writing a bit of an article for us coming up.
I am indeed. I've got the first draft ready and waiting to go.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Great start to our thought leadership articles for the year. So thanks very much for doing that. So we will have another LinkedIn Live next month when we have Mark Nichols actually is joining us next month. And that's a really interesting one about the technology and innovation as well. So please keep an eye out on LinkedIn for that. We will do some show notes and follow up. There'll be some content on our website as well. And if anyone wants to reach out to Garry, you can catch him over on LinkedIn. He's on there just about as much as me.
Idle hands. That's what they say. Idle hands.
But thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you all again soon.
And thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. Take care, folks.
See you later.